Welcome to DubLife Diaries, the podcast where passion meets the open road. I'm Joe Person, your host, and also a lifelong dubber. Buckle up, because this ride is just beginning. This podcast is sponsored by Volksmania magazine. Good times, great cars, awesome Volksmaniacs. Visit Volksmania.com to learn more about this class-leading VW magazine. All right, welcome back to DubLife Diaries. We are sitting down today with a true outlaw in the Volkswagen world, Mr. Jaga Rai. Back in 1997, he bought a very humble 1975 Canadian Standard Beetle. At the time, he was just 23 years old. The cool thing, he never let it go. While everybody else chased early or pre-67s, this guy went the other way, pouring his time, his money, and his passion into this late model build that would absolutely stand out for decades. So we're talking narrowed beams, a fat stance, a built 2161 motor, and a story that's more than just about dubs. It's about friendship. It's about community. It's about staying true to what you love. Jaga's ride is affectionately known as the Outlaw. He has been turning heads in this car for years. Today, we're going to dive deep into the build, into the culture, and into the memories that keep these classics alive. Let's welcome Jaga Rai to the podcast. What is up, my brother?
What's up, man? How you doing?
Good, man. Good. Thank you so much for taking the time to spend some time with me this evening. Before we get started, I do want to shout out a couple of my sponsors. First up on the list, Volksmania magazine. I feel like this is one of the best magazine on the planet wide. The quality, the pages, the stories, the cars that get covered, they're not just a 1 or a 2 pager. It's really a super quality magazine. Check these guys out, Volksmania.com. Use DubLife10, DUBLIFE, the number 10 at checkout to get 10% off your subscription. This is, by the way, U.S. subscribers only. So I know we're in Canada now, but my brother, I'm sorry. That's for U.S. only. Also, Salty Dub, from the beach to the bay. Salty Dub's tearing up the scene, VW events and swag. Check these guys out online, www.saltydub.com. Same thing, DubLife10 at checkout. We'll give you 10% off merch. Real quick, I have got a story to tell. Now, when you do what I do, you do podcasts. You in the Volkswagen community, you pretty much like every Volkswagen page you come across, and you try to become friends with everybody that's in our scene. Everybody that you see from all the biggest events and the shows, around the world. Literally, I try to follow and find people. So things pop up in my feed all the time where I'm like, ooh, that's a nice car, or ooh, that's a cool dude, or and again, doing what I do, doing a VW podcast, you have to put yourself out there. So I put myself out there a lot. Those of you that are listening, you just might get a Facebook message from me one day. And it's legit. It's real. I'm just trying to tell y'all stories. Well, somebody shared something and shared this Beetle and showed this yellow Beetle that you guys can see behind me. Jaga's going to tell us all about it here in just a couple minutes. But I saw it. I commented. I said, man, this would make a great dude for the podcast, because they kind of said something in the description about his appreciation for the air-cooled scene. And dude, you responded, and here we are. So what a cool story. I chased you, and you allowed me to chase you down, and now you're here on the podcast. So brother, thank you.
Thanks for having me.
All right, enough of me. Let's get back to you. So let's talk about this 75 Canadian Standard. Bring me back to the beginning, because, everybody wants pre-67s, but what made you go against the grain?
Well, to be honest, the older, early BMWs, the 2002s, where they have the big windows that go all the way around and you can kind of see in. I just love that look. And when I saw the Beetles in the earlier ones, even though everyone thought the oval windows and the smaller windshields and all that kind of stuff were cool, beautiful, of course, everybody was doing that. And I just, growing up, I was always the kid that went against the grain and I had to do something different. So I thought, why not? And, of course, they were a bit cheaper, to be honest, and just went from there. And I thought in the beginning, you know what, I'll own it for a couple of years and then I'll see where things go. And that was that.
Fast forward, you still got it.
Yes.
So,
almost 28 years.
and that's so awesome. I tell you, and I think about it all the time because I talk to guys like you all the time that still have their cars from high school. I wish I still had mine. I didn't respect it like I respect them now. Back then, I brought it home. One of the first things my dad said was, "What, why would you park that thing in my driveway?" you know, so they weren't cool. Certainly weren't cool in the mid 90s. They were just old cars. But as the scene has evolved, how awesome it is. So, what's the meaning behind the name The Outlaw?
Well, there's actually quite a few. First, when I heard the name, usually the Outlaw is referred to as a Porsche that's been hot rodded, so it's a European term, from what I understand. Hot rods are usually domestic, American cars. So I like that, and then I also having a later model and the look, and then also I remember learning that when you do something to a car that's not easily reversible, like when you cut something and weld something, it's outlawed. It's kind of like, I don't know, blasphemy or something like that. So I thought, hell yeah, like that's dope, so I wanted to do that. And then being a visible minority in the group, and there wasn't, being Indian and from Canada, like there was nobody that was into air-cooled Beetles that I grew up with. All the guys that I grew up with were Mustang guys or Camaro, Chevy guys, right?
Yep, me
So
too.
I thought that name was just befitting.
Now, you said 97 you bought it, right? What was it what was it like maybe the first time you drove this car? What did it feel like to you? Did you know it was like, it was gonna be a car, was gonna be with you for a long time?
In the beginning when I first bought it, I thought, let's see how things go. But I took it out for one test drive and, settled on a price. And I said, okay, I'll be back tomorrow to pick it up. And then I believe from what I remember, it was Friday or Saturday night. I picked up the car and I had a date that night. It wasn't my wife, so don't tell her. And and I cruised downtown, and every city used to have, I don't know, we don't have it anymore, but every city I think used to have that cruise strip that everyone would show off their rides, and that was our social media, right?
Oh, yeah.
And that's where we would go to connect with people we haven't seen in a while. No cell phones really back then, right?
Yeah.
Uh,
Might have had a
uh,
beeper. Might have had a beeper.
yeah, beeper, that's true. And in a pocket full of quarters, right?
Yeah.
And then me and her just cruised down there, and I remember her going, "Wow, this thing's pretty cool." And then the attention I got cruising downtown, everybody, and it didn't look anything really like this. Like the rims are still black, the beam wasn't narrowed, Other than that, it had a huge sound system in it, which is another reason why I bought it. I gotten rid of that. I outgrew that, but it had this huge sound system in there, and I was just getting all this attention. People were just like, killer car. And I was like, wow, okay, this is cool. I like it. And I just evolved from there.
Any early failures or mods from the early years that went wrong?
I don't know about wrong. I did go through, when I first got it, I was more into that low rider, slow cruising,
Oh, yeah.
uh, scene. I got my speed fix from an R6 I used to have back in the day, a Yamaha R6. So that was sort of my speed when I was, single and no kids. But,
Right.
but
No consequences.
Yeah, nothing really like like when I bought it, it had the wink. I don't know if you remember the wink mirrors that the Hondas used to come with. Those, 7 mirrors that were in it and a few other things. They had Honda Civic SI seats in it. That came with the car. I changed all that kind of stuff, but I'm sure there's a few stories. Like I mean, I would when I would install something, I would twist the wiring and then just use electrical tape. Thought that was fine, And up until a few years ago, I had to go back and be like, what the heck was I thinking? And I properly soldered everything. And so, not to worry there, but that was probably the worst of it. So I was lucky there.
So let's go through. You've touched on them a couple of times, and I want to go through for the listeners in full detail. Let's go through the specs of this motor. I know it's a 2161. I know you got some 48 IDAs, but kind of talk me through the car, the mods, and let's let everybody envision what this thing is.
So there's a local guy in our car club. I'm in a car club called the DVKK, Der Volkswagen Käfer Club. And it's one of the elite clubs where I'm from. You don't just get in by just, signing up and they let you in. You got to volunteer. You gotta you gotta put in the work, and you gotta have a good car, right? That fits the mold. But one of the guys in there, Darren Krunchuk, we call him K Rock. He is a master motor builder. He's been in Hot VWs and other magazines. He's a porter, like he can port motors. He's been taught by the best in the world. I forget the guy's name down in California. I believe he was in. He's passed away now, but he went down there to learn, and he can port motors like it's nobody's business. And so he built this motor for me, and I wanted it fully ported and polished. I saved for a long time, 'cause I wanted it done right. Tuned those 48 IDAs. I learned tuning that motor. He kind of gave it to me and said, "You're going to learn how to tune this thing." And I worked day and night and trial and tribulation, and I got it running just beautifully.
Excellent. Narrow beam. Tell me about the transmission. Is there a special transmission in this car too?
Yeah, it's a closer ratio, sort of a street and strip. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. Third, originally it came with a freeway flyer. That's that's 378, I think, something like that. And now it's a 412 with a stock first and second, a later model main shaft, and then I think it's a 148 third gear and like a 104 fourth gear, so a little bit shorter gearing and beefed up, right? The only regret I have is I didn't go posi. I
Oh.
didn't go traction. I don't know why. I think I something I overlooked. And a local guy here named Terry, he built that for me.
How did you learn to wrench? Was it mainly teach yourself? Was it trial and error, or did you have mentors that taught you, about the mechanical stuff when you were younger?
Definitely had mentors. When I first got it, I knew how to do the basics, the high school mechanics that we all did. But you look at a Beetle sometimes, you look underneath it and like that's not just one drain plug. There's like, how many down there, and over torqued them, right? Stripped the whole stud and screwed up a couple times. But another guy in my car club named Lanny Hussey, who's very well known and been in magazines, and another guy named Jeff Peterson, whose cars have been in magazines, and they both work on cars for a living and have their builds in magazines. They taught me everything. They didn't have to, and they could have said, "Hey man, like we're busy," but they took me under their wing, and when they would work on my car, instead of kicking me out of the shop, they'd be like, "Here, grab a wrench, and this is how it's done," and taught me everything.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's so great. And it's good to have that knowledge too. It probably saves you some money.
Yeah.
I'm not the best mechanic for a couple reasons. One, was never really something I was forced to do when I was younger. I didn't have any mechanical mentors or anything on that side. And two, as I've gotten older because of my lifestyle when I was young, I got a really bad back. And when I say it's bad, I mean it's pretty bad, man. So I don't spend a lot of time slumped over or bent down or even really on the ground, to be honest. But again, either way, awesome that you did have mentors and that you learn, that type of stuff, because I'm sure it helps you in your life.
So when I was growing up, I had met my best friend, who I'm still friends with in kindergarten. His best friend, who they met in the hospital when their moms gave birth. So all three of us became pretty tight, early on in elementary school. My best friend David and the other guy's Jason. David was half Indian, half white, and I had never seen that before. I was just like, "What?" Like, it was a foreign, thing to me, and started going over and hanging out. And his mom, Linda, who, having immigrant parents, they were working all the time. They were struggling, facing, looking back, probably facing racism and
Sure.
just trying to get like a equal opportunity like everybody else. They told me for certain stories, but they try not to tell me too much. They probably think, it might hurt me or something like that. But you see it, right, growing up. And this lady took me in and like a son, and she used to call me her adopted son. And that's another reason why I didn't get involved in the bad crowd. I was so worried about disappointing her. Even when I'm sure you can understand, a lot of guys out there and girls, you're fighting with your own parents. You need another adult outside your home. Psychology tells us that we won't listen to our parents from the age 13 to 19, but we will listen to other adults that are in our group. And she always made sure that I was on the straight and narrow, and was always, worried about me. And I was so worried about disappointing her too. I think that was a big influence in my life. And she used to call me her adopted son, and I would just glow. Like it would just mean the world to me that she said that. I'm like, what, really? You know?
Yeah, that's awesome,
I
man.
was like the fourth man, and there was three boys there too, and they were all still good friends. And I was like the fourth member of that family.
Is that chosen mom still around?
Absolutely. We're still close. I call her mom, and
That's so
we
great.
we see each other not as often as I like, but we still talk, we still text.
Awesome, man. Let's get back to your car. Now, this term is used broadly throughout the Volkswagen community. So when I say it, I really want to understand what it means to you. Stance, right? Is it more of a art thing, or is it a performance thing for you when you talk about a car that has stance?
Man, that's a good question. I think it's both. The first thing I've personally always noticed about a car that's kind of driving towards you is the stance. That's what sticks out. Like, hey, what's this? What is that? It stands so nicely. And that was a huge thing when I did mine. And
Which, by the
Lanny,
way, oh, that stance is nasty. It looks so
yeah,
good, man. Yeah, what a great looking car.
thanks, man.
Yeah,
And
man.
so me and Lenny spent a lot of time getting that stance right. I was like, this thing has to be stance right. Like the camber, the fitment, I always say people want to finger bang my fitment. Like it's it's just perfect. Like I just couldn't be happier with it. It's
Man, that's
and
awesome.
performance, obviously, it's performance too. So it's like a win-win situation.
So let's touch on DVKK again, just for a second. Take me back to, you said it was an elite club, elite for the area. Like, take me back to how you got involved, and really, I guess, what it means to you to be a part of it.
It's a definitely like a brotherhood. When I first came around, there's a big show that happens up here. It's one of I would say the biggest Volkswagen show that happens in Western Canada, called the Great Canadian Volkswagen Weekend. And 97 was my first show. I think that was show number 7. And probably the third or fourth year, I'd gotten to know the guys really good. They worked at CIP, California Imports,
Yeah.
very well-known company worldwide now, and became friends with them all. And I think it was 96, the DVKK had started, and started to become friends with them and started to volunteer at the show. They're like, hey, we need a hand. Do you want to help out? And I was like, absolutely, right? I'd be honored. And then I started to put in the volunteer hours. It's a nonprofit organization, and slowly, bit by bit,
Do they have a
put
website?
I don't we have an Instagram page that I run now,
What's the
but
Instagram handle?
I I believe it's Der Volkswagen Käfer Club. Don't ask me to spell that right now, but on Instagram, and I believe we have a Facebook page too.
Give me some of the past. It's a long time you've been involved. Give me some of your favorite memories of DVKK.
Oh man, that's a good question. I love this one. Other than going to shows, and like when you show up, we have, a display that we would put on, and everyone would be like, "Oh, it's the DVKK, right?" Like I said, magazine worthy cars and stuff like that. But to me, the best memories are the road trips down to Seattle. Because we're just, for our listeners, we're just about 2 hours outside of Seattle in Canada and Vancouver. Puyallup Fairgrounds would be another place we would go to shows. And we would, head down there Friday night, get the cheapest motel that we could possibly find. I think like
Motel 6.
Motel 6, I was just gonna say that, or the Quality Inn was like, I don't know what they are now, but it was like $69 US a night, and we would pile in like 10 guys into a room and hit up the local club, just get smashed, and then whoever paid for the room would get the bed, and everyone, like, there'd be one guy in the tub, one guy under the sink, one guy on the floor, and you get up at 6 a.m. to hit the swap, right? But there's just awesome stories like that, just all partying, and we were young, and just having a good time.
Yes, those good days of partying and being young. Post probably what, 37, 38, you're like, well,
it just starts slowing down. You go through your 40s, you're
Yes.
like, well, I think I'm actually getting old. Yeah, I turned 48 July 14th.
Belated birthday. I remember that.
Yeah, thank you, man. Thank you. Tell me how you explain the whole air cooled bond. Telling stories like that, hotel room full of guys waking up early in the morning after partying to hit up the swap. How do you explain the air cooled bond to maybe an outsider?
I honestly, I love it. Like, I have friends that are in the Mustang club, and I have friends that are in the Camaro, Chevy, whatever club. And honestly, I'll kind of watch them, and there's a lot of I don't want to use the wrong word, but there's a lot of like animosity. Everyone's trying to have the coolest car and be the coolest dude. Where in Volkswagens, it's just different. I don't know how to explain it, but there's no jealousy, or I really haven't really noticed it. And when someone needs help, there's, not just one guy. There's like four or five guys fighting over hand and fist to be like, "Hey man, I'll be there tomorrow, and let's get this knocked out of the park and get you back on the road." And you broken down on the side of the highway. I just, 2 days ago, I was cruising around in my Beetle, and I saw another guy in a bug broken down. Never seen him before in my life. It was a modified Beetle. I'm like, oh, I kind of told him, "Hey, we have a show every summer. Come check it out." And his MP roller pedal had come loose, and he wasn't mechanic inclined. I got him temporarily fixed, and I said, "Just go straight home, and this is how you fix it. So if you know somebody, get it done." And he was so thankful.
That's the community. That
I felt
for
good about it.
sure. Yeah, well, and that was you. So,
Yeah,
thanks
yeah.
for being part of it. That's, how you explain air cooled to outsiders also really kind of ties into what I want to touch on next. And it's really how the community differs from other car cultures. Really, you just told it. And it's true. And we could probably sit here and talk for hours on stories of how the Volkswagen community, especially in the air cooled scene, is just different, from other car cultures. Yeah, talk to me a little bit about growing up in East Vancouver.
Oh man. So to the listeners that are, not local, it's kind of like I don't want to use the word hood, but it's kind of like the blue collar, families that were like, maybe middle class. We have an area called West Van, it's short for Vancouver. We say Van, so East Van, West Van. That was the richer, the well off neighborhoods, and so we had like the sort of street fights, the gangs, right? There was like local gangs, the different parks, right? We had, so it was it was a bit rough and a little bit of a roughneck area, but it kind of shaped you and kind of toughened you up.
Growing up, you had some undiagnosed ADHD and some dyslexia, and I know how that feels because I had diagnosed dyslexia and ADHD, and they tried medication and the Sylvan Learning Center and all kinds of stuff that they would try to beat me normal, even
Yeah.
even though
Yeah.
I wasn't. But tell me about living a life with it being undiagnosed. I remember my struggle, so I want to hear your side. Like, what was it like coming up with having? I guess that it's even hard to explain or to I guess feel the concept of when things don't make sense. It's like I'm not like dumb. I'm not like, I'm not smart. It's just things go through my brain different. So again, this is more about you. What was it like growing up being undiagnosed?
Yeah, it was tough because you see all your friends that just got things and you're like, why am I not getting it like the way they are? And our education system is kind of a cookie cutter, right? So I always say that I felt like a round peg in a square hole.
Yeah.
Why am I why am I not fitting in the way everybody else is? And then I had a dad who was, an immigrant. So he, his old ways was just like, "Hey, you're going to learn. And I'm going to scare you into learning. So you're just lazy and you're going to get the belt if you don't smarten up." And I'm like, I'm trying my best here. I just don't understand this. So I went through a few programs, and back in my day, I guess they didn't really know how to test for everything. And in my adult years, I finally was told, like I said, earlier, I wasn't properly diagnosed, but I was pretty much told, "Hey, man, you have a little bit of dyslexia, not severe. You have a little bit of ADHD, which I know, but it was tough. It was tough. I got, I kind of gave up on school by high school,
I did
and
too,
started.
man. Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy to
Yeah,
talk to somebody similar in age. You're, just a few years older than me, 4, I believe. To talk to somebody that gets it, because not everybody does. That feeling that you just described, why other people can get things when we couldn't, when I couldn't. I feel that in like the pit of my stomach because,
yeah,
you know, even in my life as an adult, things I've tried to accomplish, tests I've tried to take, etc. Dude, I can study, I can do all the other. What does studying even mean?
yeah,
Like memorizing? Like, what do you mean study? Like, I have friends, even my wife, that will just read and comprehend. It's like, nope, it's there. I got it now. I read it once. It's there. I'm like, I forgot what I read and I forgot what I just said. And it's
yeah,
like it's not like I'm not a burnout. Like it's not like
yeah.
none of that, dude. Like it's just yeah, man. So I totally feel that. And I'm happy that you're willing to talk about it.
Oh yeah, anytime. And like, reading something 5 times over again,
Yeah.
your mind just wander. And I'm just like, what is wrong with me? I'm just like, but there was nothing wrong with us. We were just a society built this. I'm a believer that back in the caveman days, we all had jobs. There was the storytellers, there was the healers, there was the hunters, and the fathers, the fixer. We all had jobs, and I think society is just, we're doing our best, right? That's human evolution. Like I'm not sitting here putting things down. It's just the way things go. And, the things are more of a cookie cutter style. And sometimes if you don't fit in, which I mean, things are getting better. There's like way more education out there, way more help for students now that have dyslexia. And we were, maybe, I like to think of myself, you and me, as pioneers, that, we were the guinea pigs. And if that's what they got from us, then I'm honored.
Yeah, you said something a minute ago too about the system, kind of being a cookie cutter system. And we feel the same way, here in the States. My wife, said one of the privileges of us homeschooling all of our kids, which she did, was the children have to be taught in the way that they learn, not in a cookie cutter realm that just kind of forces them to learn the way society wants them to. Instead, children need to be taught, the way that they learn, and it's an opportunity to tap into the way that I never had that. If somebody would have tapped into me and taught
Yeah,
me how to learn or whatever, that feeling, I feel like I probably would have took over the world when I was 13.
yeah,
you
yeah,
know
absolutely.
yeah.
I feel like I could have done much more with my career, but I did the best we could. I'm just happy. My wife, she's an educator, and she just says, you know what? I think 60 or 70%, don't quote me on that, but it's very high, of inmates in jail are dyslexic,
Wow.
right? So, she's like, you made it, you got a career, you're a dad, you're a husband. And so I'm like, it's nice to hear, right? That I could have,
Yeah,
you know,
and just the support, by the way.
yeah.
Just the support, and my wife, same way, man. Celebrates all types of wins that, essentially I want to beat myself up for, but she reminds me, puts things into perspective for me all the time. So I value that. When did the Volkswagen community become kind of your therapy? Because it almost seems like, your love and your interest and the amount of time, passion, and money that you've spent over time on your car probably is a form of therapy.
It absolutely is. It's an interesting story. So, unbeknownst to me, when I would be in school and draw a lot, I was very much into art. I loved the beauty of anything, So, and cars kind of ran in the family. My dad had a few, he had an Impala, he had a Chevelle. So, cars kind of, in the family. And then I guess being an immigrant, when my dad came here, a status symbol of making it was having a home and a nice car,
Okay.
right? So that played a huge role in my life, and I thought I'm going to get a cool car also. But my dad was into new cars. Obviously back then in the 60s and 70s, those were newer cars. And when I wanted to buy this thing, he was like, "What the hell do you want to do with a 75?" Well, Beetle, that's not you. Get a Mercedes, like
Right, right.
what
Mercedes don't
I
talk to us like this though.
yeah, I like old cars, liked anything old, right? At that time, but obviously Beatles had just a little something different with them, right? And then so when I got into it, I was like looking through the magazines because there's no, kids that are listening right now, there was no internet. You couldn't shop online. Especially back in 97, I think it was the internet had just maybe been introduced. There was emails going around and maybe some business had some websites, but I don't know if you could order online or anything like that, but you would look through the magazines. I would be up late in bed, just flipping through, like, I'm gonna get
Dreaming.
that one.
That's how
Yeah,
we would
dreaming.
dream. Yeah.
These old black and white pictures and magazines, and then I thought to myself, okay, so how much do I have to work? How many hours do I got to put in to
Reverse
for
engineering.
yeah. And then so, while my friends, the crowd that I was hanging out with was definitely going into the wrong direction and getting into trouble, and some unfortunately were murdered, in this gang life. And I was like, I can't go out party tonight. I can't spend money on booze. I got to buy this $100 part, in a couple of weeks. So that kept me, looking back at it, I was like, oh man, that kept me out of trouble. Like, and then
Wow.
meeting the guys, the good guys in the communities that were a little bit older than me, that took you in and were like, hey, like you need help with this part, get the part, come to my garage and we'll put it in. And that was, that just became a new goal of mine, a new passion.
So it sounds like Volkswagen World essentially gave you structure and maybe even gave you some purpose.
Absolutely.
Talk to me about potential cultural barriers or
Yeah.
even assumptions that you had to push through as youth, coming into a young man.
Yeah, it was interesting, but I was fortunate. It wasn't anything terrible, but I was the only Indian guy I think I still am the only Indian guy in the air cooled world around here, and and I was welcomed with open arms. Guys, we'll razz each other, especially us old school guys. Like being politically incorrect, what they call it these days. We would razz each other a little bit, and good old fashioned brother love and picking on each other. But other than that,
Yep.
man, like I honestly was just brought in like a family member and just it started this bond. And then I knew they had my back if something ever, went awry or something like that. But yeah, no, I can't say there was anything crazy. Maybe from my own community, a couple of guys would be like, "Why don't you have like a Fox body Mustang?" Because the Fox body Mustangs were huge in the '90s, and then they're big now too, right? But I'm like, I don't like those Mustangs. That's not something that I'm into. Why not? It's like I'm just not.
Yeah, it's tough to explain that feeling.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it is. It is, even for all of us. Now, you started a men's cruise. Tell me what that's all about.
Actually, I haven't started it yet.
Okay, so
Uh,
you have a vision to start a men's cruise.
I have a vision to start a men's cruise. I told myself in my late 40s that I'm going to start something by 55, and I'm turning 52 in about 2 months. So,
Okay.
and
What's the dream for is it a ride? Is it a show?
it's a cruise. We have a popular ski resort in Vancouver called Whistler. I don't know
Yep.
if you're familiar with it, but
Totally heard of it. Yes.
so halfway up is a town called Squamish. And a lot of people, it's called the Sea to Sky. S2S is what we call it. It's a beautiful, twisty, windy road that leads all the way up there, and you can open her up and just enjoy, right? At your own pace. You want to, push the limits a little bit, or you just want to take it easy. A lot of bikers do it, and it's
Nice.
just it's something beautiful. And I thought, to bring awareness to men's health, because I'm sure it's just something that we've just started to kind of talk about. Growing up, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but boys don't cry, right? We
No,
push our
no.
feelings
Yeah,
down.
you were the P word if you were, if you were even to bring something up like this. We couldn't talk about this type of stuff. You couldn't have feelings. If you did, you were you know, yeah.
Yeah, I absolutely hear you there. And so, you either came home and drank your problems away or whatever you did. And it turned out, it's not working, right? It's not. And I had a bit of an episode a few years ago, just from unresolved childhood trauma with me and my father, and going through my issues. I thought, well, if I don't think about it, they're going to go away. Well, the human mind will eventually get tired of that, and it'll pop up. And I had to go get, talk to one of our, through my, I'm a nurse, so through our work, we are covered for anything related to mental health, talking to counselors.
Yeah.
And I thought, this
Good
is
for
weird,
you.
man. This is weird. I don't want to talk about I'm a typical guy. I don't talk about my feelings, but
Right.
man, it completely changed my life. I'm an absolute advocate. And I say, we're so quick to run to our doctors when there's something physically wrong with us. You feel a pain in your body, you're making that phone call to your doctor, right?
Right.
Why don't we do that with our mental health, right? Why
Yeah.
is, if things bothering you, why are we so afraid to not to treat our bodies and our minds the exact same way?
Yeah. Great
Yep.
point. And you almost hit something on the head too. It sounds like through some of the way that you described it that you've had therapy and
Yes.
somebody's explained it, to you. I have too, and I feel there's definitely, room for that in the conversation. But I know you feel like all older men, especially late, to older, right at the 50-year-old mark, that they need this kind of kind of space, now more than ever. Talk on that for me.
Yeah, so, I want to, besides them doing their part, I want them to belong to a community. So, I mean, anybody, any age group we wouldn't, I wouldn't discriminate, but I just want to open up something where men could hang out. And if your kids have flown the coop and you're kind of, finding yourself a little lonely, you're separated, widowed, whatever it is, I want a brotherhood where, guys, once a month we all get together, we do this beautiful little cruise, and we just hang out. And if somebody wants to talk about something, that's what we're there for. Or
Oh,
sometimes just someone being there physically is more than enough.
that's so awesome, man. It really is. You know, like you said, guys that are in their 50s now, when they were young, you we were almost trained that you can't really have feelings, you can't talk about them. You get up, you go to work. You work sick, you work through anything that you have to. You work hurt. Mental health is a new topic for a lot of people because it's not something that we explored. What does mental health look like for guys in their 50s from your opinion?
That's a good question. It's still tough. I feel that we've just started to break the barriers and the ice on this. I'm sure the younger generation are not going to have as a difficult time because, we've addressed that issue. I hope I've addressed it with my boys and our children, but guys our age, they need to be pushed. There's still a lot of guys out there that don't want to talk, and they don't know how to talk, and you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them, can't make it drink. So, I'm hoping by, if I start this, just, they might just be like, hey, that wasn't so bad, and it might just start that little push that they need, you know.
A big shift for me in my, 31. I was 31 when I started having kids. And I feel like I didn't take life serious, even all the way down to risk, whatever it'd be, gambling or, riding a crazy motorcycle or jumping off of a roof or just doing something stupid. Until I had kids, I didn't look at any of that stuff as stupid. I just looked at it as this is what we do. We're boys. We have fun. We get crazy. How did fatherhood shift your perspective? Because I know how it did for me, but how did it shift your perspective on life and on, the whole car scene?
I did have to put I had a motorbike at the time that I had that I sold as soon as we got pregnant. And I was like, this, street racing thing is a bit getting out of hand. And and
I
you
have a
know,
quick I have a quick story for that too. When my let's see, 1, 2, 3, when I had my third child, I have five. When I had my third child, we had moved back to this area from Colorado on one of our stints that we were out there. And when we came back to the area, my father-in-law, told me about this Harley this dude had that was a great deal. I ended up buying the Harley. My wife had a dream the night that I bought it that I died on it
oh,
and made me sell it the next day. so so I get it, man. I get it. You sold the bike.
Yeah, I actually crashed my bike, and then while it was getting fixed, we were pregnant, and my wife just gave me that look, and I'm like, yeah, I know, it's time to go. It's time to sell it. As soon
Right.
as it got fixed, I sold it off, and the rest is history. Just go back to your question, like the shifting, the community was awesome because, as you know, the Volkswagen community is all about family and kids and welcoming, children around. I mean, I grew up going to these shows where some of these kids were in strollers and now they're driving to the shows. Like it's wild.
Yeah. That's so cool.
And right. So yeah, it's always been a sense of family and community. So that's another thing, that it shaped, right? I was always proud to become a father and you can bring your family around and grow up with these people. And then if anything they needed help with, if they were going to ever get into Volkswagens, I know my older son is still thinking about it, but I'm trying I'm, he's a car guy just like me, but I'm trying to tell him, man, just get your education and we'll get you a car. There's a saying that I love. It says, by the time you realize your father was right, you have a son who thinks you're wrong.
Ain't that the truth?
Yeah.
Ain't that the truth? God, that hits nice and hard right in the center of the chest.
Yeah.
Go back to your 25-year-old self. If you could give your 25-year-old self advice, what would it be?
Oh, man. I would say don't sweat the small stuff and trust the process. Enjoy the moment you're in. Even if it's tough, I would I would just say, even if it's tough, don't just, like hold your breath and close your eyes. Just learn from it, even if it's a negative experience, learn from it and move on to the next with some knowledge.
Good advice. All right, I got some rapid fire questions. These are questions that demand a fast response. All right, we ready?
Yeah.
Rapid fire. All right. Favorite VW part that you've installed over time? Favorite part?
I would say my shifter, my vintage speed Mamba, the black Mamba shifter.
Cool. Okay. This is a good question, but how about the most underrated VW of all time? Most underrated.
I don't know about that one. I don't know. I don't know if there is an underrated VW. They're all pretty cool.
So
That's a
I
tough.
I get two sides to that always, right? I either get somebody that answers it
Yeah.
or I get somebody that says that, right? How about
Yeah.
overrated? The most overrated.
You know what? I'm gonna get a lot of hate for this, but I'm gonna say the later bay window buses.
The later, okay. So I hear that
Bay
in a
window.
couple different ways too. I've
Okay.
heard all kinds of cars in obviously classic VWs, but the biggest one that I hear is split window bus.
Ah,
And
okay.
it's not because they're not cool. They're cool as hell. And we all we all want one. But
Yep.
for comfort and for speed, etc., that's usually what I hear for overrated. But bay window for you, awesome. How about dream road trip destination?
I would love to do that highway, the route. What's that? Route 66?
Route 66, yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
Starts
that
in
would
South
be.
Chicago, goes all the way over the US.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, maybe not the whole thing. Probably not my Beetle because it would just be screaming on the highway. But if I could fly down and rent something with a couple of friends of mine and do maybe a week or two of that, that would be an absolute dream.
So shout out to this guy on my shirt right here, Mr. Mahalo. He's in California. He came on the podcast and he talked about putting together a Route 66 ride, down the road in the future and, having everybody trailer their cars in to that area and then, taking off and doing it. How cool would that be? That'd be fun.
So that'd be awesome.
How about least favorite trend, VW trend? Least favorite.
Oh, okay. I would say the carbon fiber and the weird flares that everybody has. You know what I'm talking about? Those body flares that they're cutting, it's not just on VWs, it's on a lot of things, but it's not a German look, I would say, but it's got the plastic flares that just kind of fly off the fenders and stuff like that.
Do you have any like most memorable breakdown moments?
Yeah, actually, I do. I lost an accelerator cable in downtown here, and I was like, "What am I gonna do?" And I called up the guys at CIP because they were very, you can call up for troubleshooting, and you still can. And I was like, "Hey, man, like I just broke accelerator cable. What do I do?" And they were like, you turn up the idle on both of your I had Cadrons back then. You crank up your idle to about 2,000 RPM, and you just put the clutch in and just cruise home. And I remember it was probably a 20-minute drive, and I got home in 3 hours.
Dang, man.
My hazards on and just staying to the shoulder of the road the whole ride home.
Yeah. You made it though, huh?
Yeah, that was stressful, but looking back at it, I always laugh.
Yeah, I love hearing these stories of crazy breakdowns and recoveries. And I've heard zip ties and bread ties being used, and bra straps and all kinds of stuff being used to get people home. It's truly one of my pleasures of doing this podcast is listening to stuff like this. Let's talk about music. What music's playing if you're wrenching in a shop setting?
You know what? Lately, it's been Oasis.
Oasis.
And Oasis, I love them. It's calming, it's relaxing, but I gotta have music on in the garage. I just have to.
Yeah, me too. Lately for me, it's been Morgan Wallen.
Oh, okay.
My wife got me into country, and I used to be a big, through the 90s and early 2000s, huge hip hop fan, kind of how I grew up with the whole culture of Biggie and Tupac and Jay-Z, all that fun stuff. So I was heavy into that. And then, well, I found a different form of rap. It's
Yeah.
Now they're singing it and it sounds good.
Yeah, it's all storytelling.
Yeah, exactly right. So where can people find you if they want to connect with you, or can we shout out the DVKK or how we can connect there? Yeah, please do.
You can find me on Instagram at Jaga_Rai, JAGA_RAI. And same thing on Facebook. And then the Great Canadian Volkswagen Weekend, we're on Instagram and on Facebook. And then our DVKK Car Club, Der Volkswagen Caper Club.
Oh man, that's a whole mouthful.
Yeah, there's a lot that I run.
Yeah, that's a cool name though. It really is. All right, final message for maybe anybody that's struggling that might listen to this episode and think, maybe it's safe to talk or something now, but anybody that's struggling or looking for community, what would be your final message to that person?
I would say, from somebody who was in a tough situation about 5 years ago, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. Just reach out and ask for help. There's no shame in asking for help. In fact, it's manly and it's brave. The bravest thing you can do is to ask for help. Reach out to your local, counselors or whatever number you have, anybody,
I ended up doing one of those, therapists that you can get online, and they meet you on like a Zoom or a, Google Meets type, like we're doing now. It's face to face. And, that really, really helped me. Now, I also had therapy when I was young. My parents got divorced when I was a early teen, 13, 14, area. Probably a horrible time, right? When I'm interested in girls and having all these questions about them for, the mom that raised me to not be around anymore. But either way, yeah, man, life is what we make of it. And, it's been a pleasure, man. You're an awesome guy. I'm glad we connected. I'm glad we met. I really do appreciate you jumping on and giving us your backstory and giving us advice. Thank you.
And that's a wrap for this episode of DubLife Diaries. Thanks for riding along with us and diving into these incredible stories of the people in the dubs that drive their dreams. If you loved today's episode, don't forget to subscribe or hit that follow button so you never miss an adventure. Do you have a story to tell or know somebody else who's living the dub life? Awesome! Reach out to us. You can find us on all socials at DubLife Diaries, or shoot me an email. I'm not hard to find. DubLifeDiaries@gmail.com. Until next time, keep the engines humming and the wheels turning, and always follow the road that inspires you. This is Joe Person. I'm signing off. I'll catch you on the next ride.